So the tariff court case news has come out and they're kicking the can down the road. So there's no conclusive information, but we have seen the market start bouncing today. Is this going to give us some weekend setups to play with? I've got Bitcoin for you, longs and shorts, and I got tons of altcoins, guys. It's Friday. Let's go. And remember, if you enjoy the content, hit the like, hit the bell, hit the subscribe. I am a little bit early today, and I wanted to get out there because I saw we were bouncing off some nice levels here, and I want to make sure you guys are covered in case this market starts running away. 𝗵𝗿𝗍 is in the house. We're going to talk to him about the news in a couple of seconds. He's in black today. I don't even know what that means anymore.
I'm in mourning because we didn't get our freaking decision today. It's what the whole world was waiting on. It's no longer the most important week in all of crypto. Damn it.
It was the hugest week. Okay, well, anyway, we're going to talk about it now. We're going to cover exactly what is going on. Banter bubbles, a little explosion here. So things have turned a little bit green. The question is it sustainable? That is what I'm asking myself. So in terms of yesterday's long and my current situation, I'm remaining long. Now, my first long play is anything down to this 88,300. So I'm not going to exit any Bitcoin long that I'm sitting in at the moment until we start losing 88,374. You can see that's the lower band over here that I've been talking about for a couple of days, and I actually thought there was a strong possibility they were going to dip us here into this news today and then give us that pump. Now, the Supreme Court has said they are kicking the can down the road, and the market has responded favorably so far. So obviously, I want to deal with these alts as soon as possible. Now, in terms of Bitcoin, support number one, 89,600. You can see this whole region here, very nice. We got our 50-day MA, we got our rising trend. There's a lot here in terms of support for us. Look out for a possible wick if they do drop it lower. 88,374, possible wick and bounce there. Okay, now if that region fails, downside, what does it do for us? It gives us quite a bearish looking situation on BTC. We're going to be dealing with a 786 bounce, most likely if they give us weakness, and that is going to create a very bearish scenario and most likely takes us to 78 to 75k, give or take, over the next week or so on BTC. So it's not really a bounce we want. It's a bounce we'll need, but it's not a bounce we want on those lower levels. Okay, so right now the bulls, we just want to hold the 50-day. We want to hold this trend. If we churn higher, what are we looking out for? Number one, it's got to be the 618 for me, 92,655. This whole region over here looking super interesting as a possible first rejection zone. So we're going to watch this area here, possible rejection in that zone, and then we'll play again at 94,100. That is going to be the next big one that I'm going to pay attention to. Okay, so those are the ping pong zones at the moment for BTC. Now, we're going to look at some of the news developments, the SEC situation. I'm not the SEC, the Supreme Court situation. Then I've got about 5 or 6 alts from yesterday. They're all holding their levels. They're popping off. And I just want to make sure you guys are covered for this weekend. And also, if we get a move, I want to make sure you know where you can short it. Obviously, we want to know where the exit zones could be on some of those. So let's jump into some of the news. Now, interestingly, the lickies was pretty quiet the whole day. Look at this. We were on about a half an hour ago, we were on about 160 million here on the lickies. We 190. And I remember our average day has actually been around 400 million over the last few days. So pretty quiet day out there. And I think it makes sense because a lot of people were de-risking into what they were expecting was quite negative news for the markets. Okay, they were expecting the tariffs to get, refunded or an order to refund them. And that was, there was a debate whether that was bearish or not. Okay, now this was the big news. They have kicked the can down the road. And what does this actually mean? So we're going to talk to James here. He's obviously been watching this like a hawk. And basically the situation is, no matter what happens here, even if these guys did come and order a reversal of tariffs, the Trump administration had a plan to carry on with the tariffs. So
that's the basis of it. The tariffs aren't going anywhere. He's just got to use other avenues. The one he used with this economic emergency that he declared, that was the easiest route. There's multiple other routes, and it talks about it here using different sections of the Trade Act and everything else. He's going to have the tariffs through, so they're not going anywhere, but this would slow him down significantly.
So all you need to imagine is a can and it getting kicked down the road and
kick.
And you just kick it and kick it and kick it. Okay, so the market bounced, obviously, because they kicked the can down the road. No decision could be a bullish thing because then the uncertainty goes away for now until we know when the decision is going to come. And then the drama is obviously going to start again. In terms of the S&P, a little bit green on that information. You can see it popped green here. We are still sitting around about all-time highs. Yeah, if you want to have a crack, you could look at some bearish things. Yeah, I'm a little bit edgy at the moment on an S&P play. Big support, obviously 6,800 region for us on that one. Now, the interesting thing for me at the moment has got to be oil. This has been the one we've been watching now for the last few days. It's obviously got our interest, and we could see a big level. We know the Trump admin wants oil at around about 50. And what I did see today was we've got so many hedge funds that are super bearish on oil with this information. And that can sometimes result in squeezy situations and bounces and things like that. And we've seen something very interesting in oil today. We've just blown through. How's this?
I didn't realize that. Wow, why?
We just popped through the 50-day moving average that has been acting as resistance. When was it? Since the beginning of December. Okay,
that's really strange. That doesn't make any sense because Trump's just said this morning, he was saying that we could potentially get trillions of dollars out of oil out of Venezuela, and it's going to enrich the country, which would naturally bring prices down. What's the deal? Something going on we don't know about?
Squeezy situations. Maybe it's like, that Spider-Man meme with everyone pointing at everyone and like there's always a covert plan. Okay, so anyway, for fun, I long the top of oil. I don't know if it's the best move ever, but you can see we've got the 50-day MA. That is our current support, and we've got our local bull zone here on the 1 hour for oil. 58.7 into 58.5. This is WTI US oil. I'm trading this one on BTCC, guys. So make sure you use the correct oil because there's Brent oil, but the price is different. Okay, so I'm using WTI at the moment. 58.7, 58.5 is your degen support. And then reasonable support would be under that breakout candle. So that candle has now broken out. Stop at 58 could be reasonable as well. Okay, just depends how deep you want to go and how you want to sweat it. So in terms of my current situation, silver is nice and green at the moment. Oil is relatively flat. You can see that top long on oil there. MicroStrategy, absolute dog shit still, and Circle, borderline dog shit as well. Okay, at the moment. So that is how I'm viewing those guys at the moment. Now let's talk about some important things here in terms of Bitcoin and altcoins and some patterns we are seeing out in the market. And just to give us a guide, we can't turn bearish until we're losing certain key levels. And obviously the 50-day MA that I've been talking about for the last couple of days has been a very important marker for us. So here we are, Bitcoin on the 3-day chart number 1 I've got for you. Look at this 50-day MA. Look at this rising trend here, 89,300. This is our bull support for now on the 3-day chart. Now, what I showed you on that 2-hour chart was the exact same trend line, and that makes a bearish case if we lose that, because you probably get that retest on the 50 and then you head lower down. But until we lose this 50-day MA, we can't actually turn bearish, because what are we saying? We're actually sitting on a nice support marker here. So other than that, we're just guessing as to what is going on. So right now for me, it's longs of support until it's broken, okay? And that is why we are sitting long. Now, another marker for us, look at ETH, same story. This is ETH on the 3-day, 50-day moving average. That is our support until proven otherwise. Okay, so those two are looking very much the same. In terms of total 3, this is our altcoin market, excluding Bitcoin and ETH. Look at that. There's our 50-day moving average. We've broken through that. So that's an interesting marker. And then look at this, USDT dominance. What is it doing right now? It's retesting the 50-day moving average. So we've got alts and Bitcoin above the 50-day. We got USDT dominance under the 50-day. Let's keep track of what is going on here in the market. We'll pay attention to this marker, and that is going to hopefully give us some clues as to if this market is going to flip bearish or not. Okay, so watching this closely. And then in terms of Bitcoin dominance, I was saying earlier in the private chart hackers Zoom that I do on a Friday, this could be an interesting one. This could be a dominance pump into the 50-day MA. You can see that red line over there. And that could, for example, take some of these altcoins down to their 50-day MAs. You can see things like ETH are a little bit high at the moment, okay? And we actually want to see that 50-day MA get retested on some of these altcoins to feel a little bit better about ourselves. So that is obviously on the table for us at the moment. So these are the markers that I am currently watching here, and a dominance pump here could, for example, bring those alts down. And you can see we're getting a little bit of a rejection here at the moment on BTC. Okay, so that is that. And no, PMG George, you did not get here late. I came here early. We had a little bounce on the market. We had some news coming out, and I wanted to make sure if this thing was going to run away that you guys were covered. Now, a lot of the levels I've been talking about for 2 days are still in play for these altcoins, and now's the perfect time to start really paying attention. If you haven't paid attention for the last 2 days, guys, well, now is the time you want to start turning this thing on. Okay, so let's talk about ETH. At the moment, our game plan was always going to be this 50-day MA retest. We've now had a little bounce, and we're going to see if this thing is going to consolidate a little bit lower. So in terms of the 4-hour chart for me this weekend, could be an interesting one, guys. 3,000 into 3,010, somewhere in that region. It could be a nice long zone with a simple exit plan for you guys. And this was actually my when entry that I put together yesterday after the show in the Chart Hackers Discord. And we are still waiting for our entry. Okay, so 3,040 here into 3,000 looks like a nice weekend long zone for us on ETH, and a very clean, easy exit plan for us. Why is it clean and simple? Look at the rising trend, look at the 50, look at the VWAP, look at that fib. If we close underneath that zone, we most likely turning bearish. If we're going down here, maybe we come for a retest and then probably down after that. Okay, so that is kind of how I'm viewing ETH. And you're going to see a very similar situation on a lot of these altcoins now that I'm going to talk to you about. We've had good reactions of zones, but a couple of markers still need to be tapped, or still need to be hit. Okay, so remember, all these charts, they go into the Chart Hackers Discord for you guys directly after the show. You got access to that. And also a couple of changes have been happening in the Chart Hackers Discord over the last week or so. So those of you that are in the Hackers Discord, you probably know about it, but Jay and Panda have now got their own channels or their own sections in the Discord, and Kimmy and Nagel, a little bit of action coming from those two as well. We are unleashing them a little bit more in the Discord. Okay, so our amazing team is getting stronger, getting better, and we've got a lot happening there for you guys in the Chart Hackers Discord. Okay, so that is that for ETH. And then in terms of a couple of positions and things that I've got cooking at the moment, wow, things can get volatile so quickly. I see my 𝗬𝗰 was green just now. It's just turned nice and red. ICP, that thing is nice and green at the moment. That was a long from DJ and Dave. He actually gave me that last night. And James, what was the news on ICP? Something about a white paper or some situation coming out. What was the story there?
Yeah, there's a white paper coming out. It's to deal with the inflation on the token itself and some sort of fix that's there. Dave talked about it in the show last night, and yeah, he's hoping that that's quite bullish news. We don't know what the actual news is, but that's what it is. They're an amendment to the white paper to address the inflation. So if that's a nice fix, that could be super bullish.
Okay, well, there you go. Amendments. What did they do? They pivoted to privacy. Let me guess. Something retarded. Okay. When in doubt,
standards.
Privacy. I mean, what was it last time? Pivot to airdrops or whatever. I mean, fucking hell. Okay. Anyway, guys, it doesn't matter. We trade these things. Who cares? Who cares what they're pivoting to? Okay. So there's the current situation at the moment. I closed a couple of shorts here. I'm still holding that Bitcoin short. No reason to change. I've got the Bitcoin long, obviously from yesterday that we got into. What was the entry there? 89,300 on the button. Okay, that was a pretty solid entry, not going to lie. Ondo off the support. Lit is still being lit. At the moment, we got to see how that thing is going to play out for us. So that is currently what I got cooking on BitGet at the moment. And then in terms of interesting things here, I am running a tentative head short on Sol in case the shit does hit the fan. Okay, so I have started that position. The big upside zones for me, Solana, guys, 144, and I've got 150. These are the big rejection zones that I would pay attention to. And then a little bit lower down, we do have action. Look at that, 133 to 130. This is still in play, okay? And we cannot be bearish until these zones get lost. Okay, so you're going to use that as support. You can see we've got rising trends here as well. You're going to use that as support until proven otherwise. Okay, so 133 to 130. Danger zones, short zones, 144, 150. Look for some action there. And yeah, watch for the Friday trap. And Abe Not Liquid says Supreme Court just faked us on the tariff decision. Yes, basically a little bit of a fake out. No news. Can sometimes be good news, but sometimes bad news. I don't know. Ondo Finance, 98 stocks and ETFs just landed on chain. Does that affect us now when the market is a little bit shitty and choppy? I don't know, but it is pretty impressive that this is going down on Ondo. And this does mean that there's real use case on Ondo. It's not just hot air, okay? And, like a lot of these things. And, it might actually be making some money and things like that at some point. So Ondo was along for me yesterday. We're still sitting in the bounce zone. Okay, here we are, 3.9. What did we say? 3.99 yesterday, or 0.4 for us on Ondo. That is still in play, guys. So no changes here. You've had multiple opportunities to lock in some kind of bounce here on Ondo. And obviously, if it fails, you know where your backup zone is. That is 3.79 or call it 3.8 from yesterday. That 7.86 backup could be a little bit of fun if we do get a meltdown now in the market from here. So 40 and 38, these are your most likely bounce zones. And then if you guys are looking for shorts and things like that, look, typically what I want to see is I want to see overextended 1 hour and 2 hour oscillators at the very least. I want to see them at the top, at the upside, and I want to see them at good resistance zones. That's typically what I like to look for shorts and things like that. So you're going to see in this market, we might want them a few percent higher so that we can hit those zones. And Sol is obviously the first example that I want to show you guys in terms of that second push a little bit higher up. So just be cautious with too heavy shorts here until we get a push to the upside. I just want to see a little bit more. And you can see in terms of Ondo, there's a nice undercarriage up here. You've got your 50-day. So if you start pushing into that zone, say 43, give or take, that could be a zone of interest where you could look for some kind of lower high and some kind of rejection there on Ondo. Okay, so just be careful with how you're managing things. Okay, you can see we might get a push there to the upside. So 43 potential short zone. PMG George, AIXBT breakout happening, he says. Let me guess, he's 100x long, or what does he always do there? And Professor Check Dupe. Wasn't there news on Dupe?
Dave is watching Jupe because there's that airdrop snapshot that ends at the end of the month. So he's gone heavy in that thing. He actually started laddering in a little higher in, but he said he's holding that thing right until the airdrop. He's fingers crossed, hoping for a massive move. Maybe it's pumping.
Okay, well let's quickly look here. There's something wrong with my browser. It keeps freezing some of my screens. Okay, we're gonna look at Dupe because maybe I took that ICP trade that Dave his swing trade from yesterday. So I did that on an isolated position, and so it doesn't get affected by anything else, and it can go up and down and be nice and red, and it doesn't really affect anything. But Dupe could be a nice play then as well. In terms of 𝗬𝗰, guys, well, yeah, I mean, we're talking about Crypto Rand saying 𝗬𝗰 consolidating nicely after the last breakout. Crypto Rand says absolutely primed. Okay, so they're feeling bullish on 𝗬𝗰. And look, I have to agree, this was our bull box here for 𝗬𝗰. 175 into 166. We have tapped that first zone. I have closed my 𝗬𝗰 short, and I am looking for a little bouncy here on this guy. You can see the 4 hour hasn't exactly reset, but we do have a mini divergence print here at the moment, and maybe a little bit of action on 𝗬𝗰. Again, you're going to monitor it, step by step. First resistance 196, guys. Look out up there. 196 and then 216 are your danger zones for 𝗬𝗰. Okay, so other bit of news, Zcash. Josh, he must be one of the developers, this guy, that abandoned Zcash and caused that big drop yesterday. And as it turns out, they didn't abandon anything. They just didn't want to work for a non-profit. And it's the same development team, and it's business as usual for Zcash, I think, as everything carries on. So their new company's name is, what is this? CashZ.org, okay? And all systems go for Zcash, and possibly, if the market decides to wake up a little bit, maybe a round 2 coming for the Zcash family at the moment. And right now I've got a blank screen, loving that. Let's see, there's okay. So Zcash on the lower time frame, guys, you can see we're getting a little bounce on the 30 minutes at the moment. If you want to have a bit of a dabble, you've got a VWAP support, you've got 382, you've got order block support, and you do have a 30-minute. Now, this is degen stuff, okay? 30-minute divergence printing here at the moment. So if you want to have a dabble on a Zcash bounce, degens only, okay? 423, call it 424 into 415. That's your kind of reasonable support zone. If you start closing under there, things could be getting a little bit ugly. I don't know if you want to get married to it. Then you might want to let that thing settle a little bit lower. So degens, there could be something there for you guys. Then in terms of the higher time frame, well, here's the chart from yesterday. I told you guys, if this thing pumps, and I'm out of this Zcash long, if this pumps, that was your first short zone, and this was going to be your second short zone. So the levels were, what did we say, 448, 450, and 490 with a short zone. So right now, the first one, 450, that has now pinged for the short zone on Zcash. So just depends on the time frame that you are trading, guys. Obviously, the filthy degens, you're looking at the 30 minutes, and there's some of the guys that trade, maybe wider stops and things like that. You're looking at the 4 hour, for example, and you can see possible danger here, 448 as a possible problem zone for us on Zcash. Okay, so that is that. And then can somebody tell me why lit is not being lit? I had so many hopes and dreams for this thing to explode, and right now it's still just chopping me around. Look at this. And we can maybe fill ourselves with some hopium, James. We can call it a bull flag, and maybe look for some kind of blowout or something like that. But right now, for me, all I'm watching at the moment, 2.88. Let's watch this as our support. If we drop into that area, like I said yesterday, it's an opportunity to add on any dips into those zones and looking for that to hold. If that fails, obviously, I get rinsed, okay? I get stopped out, and then we have to reassess where we are with lit. But yes, my lit is also unlit, sir. Okay, so 299. I do want to see 345. I do want to see 3.8. But the market guards need to come. Okay, they must come and pump this thing for us. Now, 289, 288, guys, that is my support marker that I'm using. So I'm not closing that until we lose that zone. Then 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗆s. Here's 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝗆s from yesterday. And again, not giving it enough attention. And I actually didn't take this one. And, well, actually, because they all look the same, really. I mean, to be honest. So, I mean, Link, guys, Link Army, 12.9. We got our entry there again on that fib there, 12.98. You got your 50-day MA support. So possible upside brewing here on Link for you guys. Again, just be super cautious. If you want to short too early, just be careful in case this thing does start grinding a little bit higher. What I would suggest you can do on all of your altcoins, you can go into a slightly lower time frame, and you can simply go and start step one, drop your anchored VWAP at the top, bang, okay? And that's going to be your first sort of resistance zone, okay? So look out there. You can see there's your anchored VWAP at the top. Drop that at the top there. Build your bear zone, and your bear zone is going to be your first port of call on these altcoins. The bear zone is the 382 and the 0.5, okay? So anywhere in there with the VWAP, and that should be a point of discussion, okay? These are often rejection zones. If it gets through there, you know what to do. You're looking at 618s, and you're looking at a little bit higher up on some of these guys. Okay, so right now, Link 13.5, 13.63 is what you're going to be watching. Then our favorite meme coin, XRP, still hasn't hit our big bounce zone, 2. And again, James, I'm waiting patiently for 2, okay? And I'm not going to do anything until it hits 2. I refuse. Okay, so 2 for XRP and 1.91. That is going to be your backup zone. So guys, wait for those zones there on XRP. And those of you that are hungry to short this thing, well, let's look at a little short opportunity here. You remember, you want to give these things some breathing room. You want to let them pump just to get everyone late long. You can see these oscillators are, they're not great in terms of shorting. You can see these oscillators are bottoming out. They might want to still grind a little bit higher. So what you want to do is you want to catch the bulls up here when they start telling their grands again to buy XRP, and that's when you want to short them, okay, when they start buying the top of these moves. Okay, so just give it some breathing room, let it do what it wants to do, and if it hits one of these zones higher up, then you start looking at the shorts. Okay, so just be cautious here with some of these guys. Then SPX, when entry from, I think, 2 days ago, SPX is still just mulling around, I guess. We've hit... what are we on? We've hit TP2 now. So our main support, guys, 56. That is still in play for us. No changes there. 56 is our big support. Exit play is stop or close under, call it 5499. Okay, 5499, close under there, and then things turn a little bit bearish. And in terms of danger zone, well, you can simply use the when entry chart in the Discord. These are your typical danger zones. All these TP zones, these are typical reversal zones that you can look at. So right now it's 61 and it's 637 on SPX. That looks interesting to me there. Look at that little undercarriage up here at 64. Okay, that looks like trouble there for SPX. Be careful up there. That could be a short for you guys in that zone. Okay, pay attention to that one. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, guys, in the bull zone from yesterday, 0 changes. Okay, 164 to 160. That was our big zone. This thing's churning higher. Where's your possible rejection zone? Look at 175. Why is this important to me? This is our 50-day moving average that is going to act as resistance. Well, it should act as resistance over here, and that could get you guys in a little bit of trouble. So 175, look out up there. In terms of support, 160 and 156. Watch those zones. And Tony, welcome back, sir. Where have you been hiding? Where's this man been? James, where's he been? What's going on? Okay, so that is 𝗬𝗵𝗿, and we got BCH still really just doing nothing for me at the moment. Lots of chop. The big entry zone, guys, 615 into 603. That hasn't changed for me. And remember, my bigger view on BCH is that if there is momentum, this thing's got some breathing room. Okay, if you go back into the weekly charts, you can see there's a possible big breakout coming here on this guy. And there was talk about what was the narrative? BCH is being quantum safe. Okay, the quantum computers cannot attack BCH. Okay, that's going to be the narrative. Just like Zcash was obviously the privacy thing, we're going to have quantum free narrative on BCH. So look out for that. BTC might go to zero if the quantum computers do their thing. Then in terms of setups from yesterday, I've closed both of them, Zcash and Bitcoin on Gravity. Yesterday, two little trades that I had going there. That is done. In terms of Hyperliquid, guys, again, I feel like I'm married to this thing, but it has bounced one more time in our final bounce zone here, 25.4. Okay, so I don't know what to say anymore about Hyperliquid. Just pump. Okay, we've got bullish divergence on the 2 hour. Why aren't you doing something? Okay, I mean, not even Lit is doing things at the moment. So you've got your bullish divergence on the 2 hour for Hype. You've got a 618 and VWAP combination support. I'm long. Okay, and the exit plan under this thing, guys, really simple. We'll keep it simple. 25.18. Start closing under there, just jump out. Okay, there's a couple of other levels lower down. Obviously the market makers could play tons of games, but you can see there's a big level down here as well at 24 into about 23.7 for you guys. Okay, so there you go. That is your weekend setups to watch for. You've got your supports, you've got some danger zones. Just play safe out there. Okay, no news is good news until sentiment runs out again or whatever. Oil's an interesting one for me. Silver obviously still pretty interesting at the moment. So good luck, guys. If there's any explosive moves this weekend, I'll get the team together. We'll do some live trading for you guys during the course of tomorrow. Okay, so but we need some fireworks out there, and let's see what we get. Okay, thank you, sir.
Good luck, everyone. And man, thanks for the call, DJ Dave. That ICP's flying. Well done.
Banger.
Smash that one.
Banger. Okay, so that was on DJ Dave's weekend setups or swing trades that he was looking at in a bullish market. He did a show last night. He's obviously in the Discord as well, guys. Okay, so catch you guys later. Have a good weekend.